welcome to the Earth Feels podcast.
I'm Rose.
And I'm Christine.
Welcome to Earth Feels, the podcast for people feeling overwhelmed by the endlessly gloomy climate news.
Where every week we have soul-based conversations about climate change and explore the idea that climate change may be happening for us as much as it is happening to us.
If you are ready to shift your focus and secure the future for our kids and our grandkids, then this is the podcast for you.
And yes, we do know how to spell.
This is our first chat at Earth Feels for 2020. You and I are doing our own thing for the last couple of weeks.
Right? Yeah, so Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Here we are in 2020. Australia's on fire. COP25 accomplished nothing, it feels like. So where does that leave us? Well, you and I have been having some conversations about where that leaves us, and it's pretty interesting because right after we started, the last 2 weeks of December, right, we had a couple of conversations that centered around the fact that this is ridiculous. There's enough of us committed to a livable future that we just have to stop this madness. And one of the ways that we discussed stopping it was stopping the money. And the fact that women make 70 to 80% of the economic decisions in their households. And women, as we know, we want a future for our kids. And so where did we go with that?
Well, so I think that's our topic for today. Money talks. How do we change the narrative? And you're right. Women influence 70 to 80%, and that's globally, 70 to 80% of all spending decisions. Mm-hmm. So as women, to me, this can be a women's empowerment issue. We want the future for our families. We want our kids and our grandkids to be safe. And it's something that women can, if by shifting their spending decisions, or shifting our spending decisions, I should say, mm-hmm. we can make big change. And it doesn't require all of us going out in the streets and protesting. It's something that we can do as armchair warriors almost. Yeah. The exciting part, for me, about all of this is I was kind of seeing it coming. I was getting kind of these intuitive hits that this is the direction that things should be going. And voila, this past Friday, Jane Fonda finished up her Fire Drill Fridays in DC. 147 people were arrested. Thank you very much. Okay. Go Jane. But she marched down Pennsylvania Avenue and ended at the Chase branch at the junction of 7th Street Southeast, where environmentalist Bill McKibben, who we have named our podcast after his book, Earth, he and about a couple dozen fellow activists were staked out in protest of Chase's financing of oil and gas companies.
Yes. So let's talk a bit about that. So you and I had that conversation. We need to stop the money that is funding the destruction of our earth and our children's future. And then Bill McKibben, and apparently in conjunction with Lennox Yearwood Jr., formed a new online organization that's called Stop the Money Pipeline. And that's what Jane Fonda was sort of responding to, because since the Paris Agreement, which was in December of 2015, there's been globally, how many?
So since the Paris Agreement in 2015, I didn't realize it was December, but 2015 Paris Agreement, 33 major global banks have collectively poured $1.9 trillion into fossil fuels. That's right. According to Rainforest Action's Fossil Fuel Finance Report Card.
Okay, really interesting reading. One of the places you and I got our inspiration for our discussion. And the reason Jane Fonda marched down to JP Morgan Chase, and the reason that Bill McKibben is pointing out Chase, is the fact that JP Morgan Chase has pumped $196 billion since the Paris Agreement, more than any other single bank.
Right. So they are the worst
into
on
fossil fuels.
into fossil fuels funding. Yeah, they
Right.
are the worst by an astonishingly wide margin.
Yes.
And in addition to that, JP Morgan's profits were up 18% last year,
Ah.
while all the while the world is burning.
So I'm going to read a little bit about what Bill McKibben said. He had a recent opinion piece in the New York Times.
Great.
And this article that I'm reading from is from cleantechnica.com. And it says, McKibben has special contempt for JP Morgan Chase because it is funding, quote, the very worst projects that expand the reach of fossil fuel infrastructure and lock in our dependence on fossil fuels for decades to come. In Minnesota, for example, the Line 3 pipeline replacement project, financed in part by JP Morgan Chase, adds 337 miles of crude oil carrying pipeline across Minnesota. If approved this year, the pipeline will carry 760,000 barrels of crude oil every day from Canada to terminals on the edge of Lake Superior. And I'm going to skip ahead a bit. McKibben says, if we could get just one offending bank to move toward divesting from fossil fuels, the ripple effects would be both swift and global. Imagine an announcement from JP Morgan Chase that it was immediately ending funding for new fossil fuel projects. It would echo
Wouldn't that be
around
incredible?
the world in hours, and there would be nothing that Trumps or Putins or Bolsonaros of the world could do to stop it. And in fact, this is what Paul Gilding, the article that was part of our holiday Best in Climate uploads, was talking about. Once this push in the right direction, in the direction of clean energy economies, once it starts, it will be unstoppable.
Yeah. So as I'm reading all of this stuff about and getting these this what I call big magic, this intuitive hit that this is what needs to be happening yet. We were able to connect with Rainforest Alliance and meet a numbers cruncher gal there. Her name is Allison Kirsch. Shout out to Allison. To find out who the biggest offenders were, and we found out that Chase was. And so Chase is quite insidious. They once you have that card, how often then it becomes easier and easier to use it. And I think that's kind of the insidiousness. And then the conversation ensues. So I talked to my partner and his car. He bought a new Subaru last year, and the Subaru and financed it through Subaru, and Subaru is financed through Chase. And then I talked to my son, who's an environmental engineer, and he does all of his banking at Chase. So, I mean, we're all complicit. But we don't have the information at our fingertips. We don't know that. So I did some more information hunting on Chase and looked at, they have 28 separate credit cards, including the AARP, British Airways, Hyatt, Southwest, United, Aer Lingus, Marriott, Disney. They're all Chase cards that if you have a card with any of those logos on it, you're giving Chase your money, and Chase is funding the destruction of our planet.
Yeah,
it's just it's heart-wrenching, and it's the underbelly that we do not even know is going on until now.
And exactly. And so
until now.
So I don't have a card with Chase. Here in Canada, our banking system is a little bit different. And so we're going to be talking, I think, over the next few weeks about what people in different parts of the world can do, because I do know that RBC in Canada, the Royal Bank of Canada, worst fossil fuel offender here.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally don't have any
connection to Chase.
No to RBC.
Oh, good. Okay.
But somebody in my family who shall remain unnamed at this time, he knows who he is.
Uh-oh.
Has.
I know who he is too, since he's the only male in your family.
It could be a brother.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It's not, but it could be. But I bank at a credit union because
Yeah.
I think that's important. Although, interestingly, when we were talking with Allison from the Rainforest Action Network, the one who had done the research for that fossil fuel credit card, she pointed out that in Canada, there's a large credit union called Desjardins, which is based out of Quebec, but I believe they have branches across Canada, and they actually they funded one of the pipelines recently, or been one of the funders. So you can't assume because you're with a credit union, unfortunately, that your credit union is green. So that is more investigation. But just because you are with a credit union doesn't mean you necessarily aren't green. That's just one particular credit union.
Right. So I guess the lesson there is we need to do a little bit of research about who we're investing our money with, who we're just holding our money. I mean, so Chase here is one of the largest financial institutions in the United States, and they have 16,000 ATMs nationwide. So even if you're not banking with them, but you're using their ATM and it's charging you a fee, that money is being funneled towards fossil fuels.
Yeah.
They have like 50 over 5,000, 5,500 I've read, 5,100 branches in 33 states. You can go to the website to find out what the physical location that's closest to you.
Which website?
To Chase's website. So we'll put in, I think it's chasebank.org, and we'll put that link in. And we're saying that, I think stop the financial pipeline, stop the money pipeline is saying that they're going to be starting to do protests.
I think one of the best ways to protest is to cut up one's credit card if one has one.
Mm-hmm. I will post the address of Chase Corporate, and so cut up your credit card if you're so inclined to go with us. We'd love to see you do it in video form and post it on Facebook or whatever social media you use, and certainly you could post it on our site, our Facebook site, and as well as the show notes for this episode. And then mail your credit card in to the company and let them know, because
credit card,
the more people that do that, the more they will realize that they need to move their money, or we're going to move our money from them.
Yes. And so we'll put up a link to the website, Stop the Money Pipeline. We might, if it's not on that website, we might post on our website template of a letter that you can send your credit card. Now we want to say, if you do video or take a picture, make sure that your credit card number isn't visible.
Oh, that's good. That's smart. Yeah.
So put tape over it, or however you want to do it, just the back of the credit card, and because you don't want to have any issues.
Yeah, you don't want to set yourself up for some fraud.
Right, exactly. If you can, I know, Rose, you were talking about if it was possible to maybe do it in video or photograph the cutting up of the credit card in front of a Chase Bank. If somebody feels so inspired, that would be great. That's not the important part. The important part is you make the connections to the power that you have through your economic clout, the power to change the trajectory of climate change. Because we know Australia is on fire, and they're still going through with the Adani coal mine there.
Yeah.
And they're just not listening. It's insane. And it's up to those of us who are still sane, who realize that, yes, money is important, but it's not more important than life itself. It's not more important than a habitable planet. It's not more important than a livable future for our children. So the sane ones among us, we invite you to look where your money is going. Question if it's not Chase. We'll post a link. There's some other banks that are questionable right now, but so do your own research. Now, Rose and I are not financial advisors, although she does have a degree in economics. I don't. Mine is in religious studies, so don't look to me for financial advice. And if you want to consider, if your Chase credit card is your only credit card, we'll post some links to what to do if you're concerned about canceling your credit card, if that will impact your credit rating. And because there are ways around it, but it is something to consider. And I don't know, I know Stop the Money Pipeline was looking at BlackRock, which is an investment.
Yeah, they have three. So credit cards and banking is Chase. They have BlackRock Investments, which for years, I don't have my investments with them anymore, but we did have investments with them for a long time. And talking to my BFF, she has a portion of her investments with BlackRock. So there's the credit card banking part, the investment part, and then also insurance companies. And Liberty Mutual from my hometown of Boston, they are the worst offender in terms of insuring pipelines, insuring fracking sites, insuring
Not even,
drilling sites. So
even a good investment anymore. I just don't understand this short-sightedness, but I guess it's worked up until now, and so they just really haven't seen the writing on the wall.
well, and it's also it's kind of like, it's kind of like it's a well-kept secret. People haven't really been delving into that, and we're living in the age of transparency, right? Every day we see something that we're like, I didn't know that. So the other cool thing about stopthemoneypipeline.com is that they're very closely affiliated with 350.org because it's Bill McKibben's baby. So they are having a letter writing campaign to the CEO of Chase, Jamie. Help me with his last name.
Dimon.
Oh, they are having a letter writing campaign to Jamie Dimon, where they're collecting letters, or you could send them individually to him and telling him that we will be moving money away from your bank if you do not do something.
Mm-hmm.
So the pressure is intense for us to do something, and it looks like people are actually stepping up to the plate to make it happen.
Yeah, time to ratchet up the pressure on those people like Mr. Dimon and who's ever in charge of Liberty Insurance and BlackRock, to let them know this is absolutely unacceptable. Absolutely. There's no reason that this is going on in 2020. I mean, and the fact that it's the 2015 Paris Agreement happened, and it made absolutely no difference to these financial institutions. Clearly.
Well, and I'm just pulling Jamie Dimon's information up on Google as we're talking. So he made $31 million in 2018.
Yeah.
So he personally is reaping the benefits of burning the world.
Yeah.
And that has to stop.
Yeah.
That has to stop.
Yep. Let's cut off this. Let's stop the money pipeline. Cut off this monster.
Well, so what do we have for good news this week? The good news that I saw, a couple of things. Well, obviously, as Australia burns, the people in Australia are up in arms, and there's been a groundswell of support. People are in the streets in Melbourne. People are in the streets in Sydney.
That was our good news last week.
Oh, was it? Okay, so sorry.
No.
Okay. Well, because now they're saying Scott Moe's got to go. Scott Moe's got to go. I'm just like, yeah, I love the chanting.
Yes. Yeah. Because I heard that Scott Morrison decided, in the way of leaders of, I don't know about political leaders in the US, but certainly in the Commonwealth, Canada, the UK, they're calling a royal commission to study it. That's what he's called for now.
Yes, I did see that. Yeah. Let's just delay a little bit more while we wreak more havoc and make more money.
Hopefully the Aussies won't fall for that.
I don't think so. I think they're a little bit beyond the pale at this point.
They're woke.
The other cool thing is back to our 16-year-old climate activist friend, Greta. She's calling for climate activists to take on the World Economic Summit at Davos in Switzerland on January 20th. And there's a number of stories that have been posted that they're going to be showing up to demand that the leaders, the financial leaders, divest.
Okay, so when she says take on, what?
So take on meaning that she is the activists there are going to be protesting outside of the Davos summit in Switzerland, demanding,
yep,
making demands.
Bless her and her group. I do feel like it's not the 16-year-olds that are going to cut this money pipeline. It's going to be the people, the women like you and me, who have economic capacity that 16-year-olds just don't. And we collectively, women of the world, need to say enough is enough.
I agree.
But I'm still glad she's going to be protesting, but I think that doesn't take the onus off of us to really step into this role in 2020. Look at your investments. I'm in the middle of re-examining mine.
Well, in the beginning of the year, I mean, I think a lot of us do budgetary things anyway. So so it's happening at the perfect time.
Exactly. And there are funds. Now, I don't know if you have mutual funds or ETFs, but there is here in Canada, there's a new fund that's CI First Asset MSCI World ESG Impact ETF. So ESG, have you heard of that?
No, I haven't. That's
okay.
a lot of letters there.
Yes, so that's okay, because I have to shout out to my friend Suzanne, who's a faithful listener to Earth Feels, and she is the one who brought this particular fund to my attention. And so what you need to look for, and again, I am not a financial advisor, do your own due diligence, but I suggest that you look for funds that invest in companies that have a high ESG, which is high environmental, social, and governance performance. And there are funds, I'm looking, this one is a Canadian one. So if you're somewhere else in the world, you will have to find one that's more specific for you. The thing I like about this CI First Asset ETF is that not only does it have a diversified portfolio of companies with high ESG, and again, that's high environmental, social, and governance performance, it also excludes companies focused on fossil fuels for energy purposes. So how great is that? It's a new fund, so that doesn't have a lot of track record yet, but I don't care. We know that that's where the economy is going, is towards clean energy. And so any investments that you can make in the long term in clean energy.
Just don't buy your BlackRock, because they have a global high yield ESG fund as well. So
interesting. So we don't want to go anywhere near that one, because the rest of their funds are particularly bad. I'm assuming that's why Bill McKibben is focusing on that. So good point. Don't buy the BlackRock ESG fund, but there must be other ones out there.
I'm sure there are. We'll have to.
I'll put a link to, again, it's for the Canadians out there, but there's Tim Nash in Toronto I'm trying to think of his website. I think it's goodmoney.com. And he's been looking at investing sustainably for a number of years now. I've met with him for advice, and he has a really good website. So we'll put a link up for that. And I'm sure, actually, I know that RMI, Rocky Mountain Institute, is doing some work with green banks and green money as well in the US. So
there's lots of options.
There are more options than there used to be. There's certainly not as many options as there are if you don't care.
Well, we're knowing that all of our listeners are now caring, and they're all opening their wallets as we speak.
or their investment accounts, and taking a good look. And meet
Right.
with your advisor and tell them that's how my friend Suzanne came across this fund. They met with their advisor through the credit union, or maybe it wasn't the credit union. I'll just say they met with their financial advisor and said that they wanted to invest only in clean stocks. And the CI fund is what he went back. He didn't know. He did his research and sent them this information. So you have to ask fund managers, money managers. This is new to a lot of them. We're forging new territory here. It's about time. But
All good stuff.
okay, so we
All good
have
stuff.
good news is that more protests in Australia, right?
Right.
Scott
Yep.
Moe's got to go.
Scott Moe's got to go. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Greta and the climate activists at Davos, I think is going to be, they meet there, the International Monetary Fund people, they meet there once a year. And so it will garner more attention. And while 16-year-olds may not be the ones who shift what's happening, that's up to us who hold the monetary power, as you said. The fact that she's shining the light so damn brightly, that it can't be missed, I think is incredible. So,
yeah.
So, and then action step, obviously, open your wallet, check out what your investments are, check out who you are, who your credit card is. But basically, just go to Stop the Money, www.stopthemoneypipeline.com, and read what McKibben has to say, and see where that takes you. Sit with it. Listen to what your intuition tells you.
And then look at your wallet. And tell us what, if you end up doing anything, we'd really be interested.
Yeah, give us a shout out if you do. Yep. Or I shouldn't say when you do, because that is the responsible thing, right? So this week's sanity tip, anxiety is high right now, and because we're looking at, anxiety is linked to living in the future, and whereas depression is living in the past, and anxiety can be really high right now, looking at the unknown. But coming back to your breath and staying in the present. The present is what we have right now, is the time that we need to focus on. Take an action now, and try not to focus too much on the future, because every moment, every action that you make in every moment is creating the future for us.
Like that. All right. Thanks for listening.
We'll talk to you next week.
Hey.
Bye-bye.
That's this week's episode of Earth Feels. Special thanks to singer-songwriter Kristen Hoffman for generously allowing us to use Song for the Ocean. Thanks for listening.
And don't forget, subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast player so you don't miss an episode. Catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Children of the earth, I'm calling out. There's a mission for you and for me. You see, your mother, she has been suffering, and the truth is told beneath the sea.